Well, that one was rough. I just really dislike this Jake Browning guy. Every time the Jaguars plays the Bengals, he shows up and completely tears apart the Jaguars. Though at least this time he threw some interceptions. On the downside, the Jaguars found a way to squander some opportunities to seal the game late in the fourth quarter. So what are the takeaways here? So, of course, the Jaguars lost to the Cincinnati Bengals 34-31. They should have been in great shape, especially once Joe Burrow had to leave due to what turned out to be turf toe. You would think with a backup quarterback coming in, the Jaguars' offense was at that point playing really well. You would have thought the Jaguars would have been in good shape. But, of course, the Bengals have probably one of the better backup quarterback situations in the NFL quietly, with just a really efficient quarterback, though he did throw, again, 3 interceptions, one of which his head coach said wasn't his fault at all. So 2 interceptions that he was kind of responsible for. Not even sure that Devin Lloyd was down on his interception. The camera angle, they didn't really ever show it in the live broadcast, so I still haven't seen the angle there, but he may have been on top of a player. But that was a letdown. The Jaguars lead for 50-some-odd minutes of the game, and then lose in the last 60 seconds. Trey Hendrickson was a problem for the Jaguars. It seemed like every big situation he was there, including right at the end of the game, forced a Trevor Lawrence turnover in the first half. So let's talk just a little bit about, my thoughts are a little bit scattered, but let's talk about the kind of big picture negative things, and then I'll try to end with just a little optimism, though that might be hard if you're watching this when this video comes out, because you're probably still feeling it a little bit. The big negatives, obviously, the penalties. There was one point where there were 4 illegal shifts on the Jaguars in a 2-drive span, including at one point back-to-back plays. They mentioned it several times, but the mechanics of getting in and out of the huddle, getting into the right play, getting the play snapped, it just was off all day long, and it got really bad there for a little while. But the Jaguars just couldn't get out of their own way at points in the game, penalty-wise on offense, so that wasn't great. Obviously, Brian Thomas continues to have a really bad start to the year. He's dropping footballs. There were several times, they talked about him making a business decision on one of those interceptions going across the middle. He deflected it, got intercepted by the Bengals. He did that type of thing a few different times where he could have more aggressively went up for the football and chose not to. And I don't know that any of them would have ended up being receptions, but it is concerning that your top tier wide receiver that you believe can be one of the best in the NFL is not really trying to go out there and get to the football. I don't necessarily blame him. That one over the middle in particular, he was going to get lit up. It probably wouldn't have been intercepted, probably would have been incomplete, to be honest, but yeah, you would like to see him making some of those plays. And then, of course, that 4th down and 5 there at the end of the game before the Bengals' final touchdown drive. The drop there, it was going to be close, whether he was going to fall forward and get the first down or not. It all depended on whether that Bengals defender could get to him in time, but it was going to be very close. But, of course, he just dropped it. Hit him exactly where it needed to. It was not a bad pass at all, and he just dropped it. So, obviously, really bad day for him. And then, of course, the Jaguars had a drop touchdown pass there towards the end of the game that would have not sealed the game, but it would have really put the Jags in a great position. And, yeah, so they let that one get away. And then, concerningly, Trevor Lawrence continues to make some just bad decisions. All the interceptions were not his fault. He had the deflected one there. So that wasn't necessarily his fault, though he was getting his receiver lit up if Brian Thomas actually went for it. But more concerned about the number of times that he throws into just blanketed coverage, and a lot of those fell incomplete today, but he's making some really dangerous throws out there. And for a team that doesn't have great margins of victory or margins to work with, where they need to play well for 60 minutes, he's giving them streaks of really good play. But the problem is then they're backing it up with streaks of really bad play. And once again, that's kind of been the plague on the Jaguars for a while under Trevor Lawrence. So that was obviously a big problem. They did move the ball really well. They piled up a ton of yardage, but at the end of the day, 27 points isn't enough. They really needed that touchdown at the end to put them over the hump. And I don't necessarily blame Liam Coen for the decision-making there. And maybe this is a bit of a hot take on that, but going for it wasn't the issue to me. I understand the logic. If you go up by 6, the Bengals need the touchdown. If you're up by 3, they could force overtime, but you're not maybe quite as worried about the touchdown because maybe they get sort of a little conservative there at the end. In some ways, actually only being up by 3 kind of gives you a bailout because they have the option of going for the field goal, and then maybe you worry a little bit less. Obviously, it didn't matter because the Bengals went down and scored the touchdown anyways with like 18 seconds left and won the game that way. So the Liam Coen decision is really hyper-aggressive. It's not the decision I would have made as the team's head coach, but had they converted it, then he's the genius. He's the gambler, and the Jaguars are 2-0, and it pays off. So it just didn't work out. The execution, obviously, Brian Thomas dropped the football, and we'll never know how it would have panned out had he caught the football and possibly got the first down. And then we should probably talk about Travis Hunter a little bit, who basically had some early receptions and then largely disappeared. He had the big defensive pass interference there on the last Bengals drive on that 4th down play, which you could absolutely argue was a fairly weak defensive pass interference call, but at the same time, he wasn't turned around looking, so you will occasionally get those calls made against you. I don't love the flag, but at the same time, you're going to get some of those flags occasionally, so he's got to be better in that regard and get his head around to at least give the official a good excuse to not throw the flag there. But in the second half, it just didn't seem like he was really much of a factor. So unfortunately, Travis Hunter, week 2, still not playing a big role on either side of the ball. Offensively, he's getting some shorter receptions and making some run after the reception, but on defense, we haven't really seen a whole lot from him so far after 2 weeks, which wouldn't be a big problem as a rookie. The issue is they gave up a boatload of draft capital to get him. You would like to see him be a little bit more productive, and I'm sure that'll come with time. Like, he'll get better with time, but right now I think they're still trying to feel out exactly how they're going to be using him. Those are the big negatives. Defensively, you would love to see the Jaguars do a better job with Jamar Chase. It seemed like he was running wild for much of the game. They didn't seem to have a great plan to deal with him. So that was a problem as well that I saw. So the good news, because there actually may be at least a semblance of a silver lining here, and that is that the offense at times has played really, really well, and the defense is generating turnovers. Obviously, it didn't result in a victory today, but another handful of turnovers thrown out there as well today. So the defense is definitely improved from last season. That's a big upside. The other thing with the mechanics, these are brand new systems, offensively and defensively. Obviously, we would love to see the Jaguars run a flawless game where they don't have all these turnovers, but that didn't happen. On the bright side, I would expect those mechanical things to improve throughout the season. So if there is a silver lining here, it's that a lot of these woes are hopefully shorter term things that as the team gels under the new system, hopefully we see that progress and get better and better. So hopefully, basically what I'm saying is this is hopefully the worst iteration, the worst version of the Jaguars offense. Hopefully this is the worst mechanically they play all year long, and we see far fewer of these penalties. I suspect that'll be a focus moving forward. So 1-1, that sets up a really major game next weekend. The Jaguars against the Texans. The Jags are now a game behind the Colts, who got bailed out by the Broncos on their field goal attempt there to win the game. If you didn't see it, go back and watch that. The Broncos made a boo-boo. So the Colts are 2-0 and actually looking pretty good. So this Texans-Jaguars game is a big one for one of those two teams to kind of keep pace with the Indianapolis Colts, because the Colts look like right now the team to beat in the AFC South. So a big tilt coming up there. And then, of course, the 49ers down the road after the Texans game. So it would have been great to go into this Texans game at 2-0 for the Jaguars. So they kind of put themselves behind the 8 ball a little bit early on here in the season, because their schedule is not easy for a while. So they need to pile up some of these close wins. They still are snake bitten by these one possession games, not able to win them just like last year. Hopefully that changes around and they sort of return to the average and start winning some of these close games as well. But that's where we are. Those are my quick takeaways from the Jaguars' loss against the Cincinnati Bengals. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I'm trying to avoid the doom and gloom because they looked really good against the Panthers as a whole, and there were moments the Jags looked good against the Bengals, but admittedly, if the Jaguars are going to be playoff contenders, they need to get better rapidly when it comes to some of those silly mistakes that really cost them the game today. So let me know your thoughts down below. I'm Shane. I'll see you guys in the next video.